Welcome back to part 2 of the top reasons people regret moving to Charlotte, North Carolina. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend checking it out, where we covered such topics as bugs, infrastructure, and the infamous traffic. But today we are diving even deeper into this conversation. This time we are tackling some topics that might shock and surprise you. The perception that Charlotteans are rude, concerns about low wages, and even the environmental worry about coal ash. If you're considering relocating to Charlotte, North Carolina, then these topics might be very important to you, so stay tuned. If we've never met before, my name is Christen Ripoli. Every week, my husband Jason and I post videos about everything Charlotte, from new construction tours and neighborhood highlights to the pros and cons of living here. I'm also a licensed real estate agent, and I help people just like you buy, sell, relocate, and invest here in the greater Charlotte area. So if that sounds like your jam, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any updates. Now, as always, the comments section is where the real conversation happens. Whether you're already living in Charlotte or considering a move, then feel free to drop a comment so that you can start a conversation, make connections, and ask any questions you might have. I personally answer every legitimate question down there, so don't hesitate to reach out. All right, let's jump into part 2 and find out what Charlotte residents have to say about these sometimes surprising concerns. It's time to continue peeling back the layers to find out what it's really like to live in Charlotte. All right, this caught me off guard, but according to recent studies, Charlotte has actually ranked among the top 10 rudest cities in America. What exactly does this mean? Well, it turns out that things like drivers not letting you merge, lack of self-awareness in public spaces, and just generally cold interactions have left a negative impression on both new residents and visitors alike. It's worth mentioning that this is not everyone's experience, but it's a sentiment that's been vocalized enough to make national rankings. To give you an example, the article on Axios highlights Charlotte's position on this list, confirming that many people find the overall vibe here a bit standoffish. But let's not jump to conclusions. Sometimes it could be due to the rapid growth and the big city hustle that's caught some folks off guard. Let me know in the comments if you have experienced this, or if you think that this perception might not be rooted in reality. This next one will probably not surprise you, because weather typically shows up in every pros and cons list for pretty much any city. There are only a handful of places that I would consider to have perfect weather, and guess what? Charlotte's not one of them. Now, if you're someone who loves the changing seasons, or you're moving from a colder climate, you might find the weather in Charlotte disappointing. Let's get the scoop on the top weather-related complaints I've heard about Charlotte, North Carolina. First up, snow, or rather the lack of it. Many people moving here from the North or Midwest are used to having snow-covered winters. But in Charlotte, snow is actually pretty rare. We might get 1 or 2 light dustings a year, but do not expect those big white winter wonderlands. And for some, that can be a real letdown. I've had clients who've grown up in snowy regions, and they say they miss the snow days, the skiing, and just the overall vibe of a snowy winter. Here, you're more likely to see rain in those colder months than snow. So if you're someone who loves a good snowstorm, Charlotte might not be for you. Now let's talk about summer. If you've never experienced summer in the South, let me just tell you, it is hot and humid. Some people are actually caught off guard by just how intense that summer heat can be. I've had clients who've moved from cooler places like the Pacific Northwest or New England that have said the summers here are almost unbearable at first. From June through September, you can expect 90-degree plus days where the humidity makes it feel even hotter. If you're not a fan of sweating the moment you hit the outdoors, then Charlotte summers may take some adjustment. But don't worry, there's air conditioning in pretty much any building you can go into, and air conditioning will be your best friend. Another big complaint I hear, particularly in the spring, is the seasonal allergies. If you're already someone who suffers from allergies, Charlotte might make them worse. The pollen count here can be really high, and it's not just the spring bloom that is going to cause problems. We actually have allergies in the fall as well. Many of my clients who have moved from other parts of the country have said that their allergies have never been worse than when they moved to Charlotte. The combination of tree, grass, and weed pollen can leave you feeling congested, sneezy, and miserable. So if you're sensitive to allergens, you will definitely want to stock up on allergy meds. With all that being said, I just want to mention that there are benefits to Charlotte's weather too. Yes, we don't get a lot of snow, but that means milder winters too. You can comfortably enjoy outdoor activities here nearly year round, and in the spring and fall, the weather is absolutely beautiful. And while the summers are hot, there's no shortage of lakes, pools, and shaded parks to help you cool off. And the warmth does bring a vibrant outdoor culture with plenty of festivals, outdoor dining, and sporting events. So while the weather in Charlotte might not be what you're used to, it's all part of the experience. If you can handle the heat and keep your allergy meds on hand, you'll find that Charlotte has so much to offer year-round. Before we go deeper into this list, I want to invite you to check out the comments section. It's a great place to gain some perspective, as locals often chime in with the good, the bad, and everything in between. Just a heads up, some people love the opportunity to vent, and there are other people who are genuinely trying to be helpful, so take it all with a grain of salt. And if you have more questions or want to know even more about the area, all of my contact information is down below. There's even a link to my calendar so that you can schedule a Zoom call with me at a time that works best for you. Next up is a very serious topic. This has been on the minds of many people moving to the Lake Norman area. Cancer concerns related to coal ash deposits. There's been a lot of discussion, articles, and worry about this topic, and while nothing has been definitively proven, let's go over some of what we know so far. First off, what are these cancer concerns? Over the last several years, some residents around Lake Norman, especially in Huntersville and Mooresville, have reported higher rates of rare cancers, particularly one called ocular melanoma. This has raised alarm, and many people are asking if coal ash deposits in the area could be linked to these cancer cases. Coal ash is a byproduct of coal burning power plants, and for years it was stored in unlined pits around North Carolina, including near Lake Norman. These deposits contain toxic substances like arsenic, lead, and mercury, which could potentially seep into groundwater and the surrounding environment. So what's being done about this? Well, there have been some investigations to try to determine if there is a direct link between cancer clusters and the coal ash deposits. In 2024, the EPA updated its stance, stating that coal ash might be more hazardous than previously thought, which has sparked further investigation. However, despite these concerns, no conclusive evidence has proven that the coal ash is the cause of these cancer clusters. A lot of residents, understandably, want more thorough research to be conducted, and many are calling for the state to take a stronger stance in getting this research done. In fact, there was an investigation into a daycare in Mooresville where coal ash was found buried under the property. While Duke Energy, the company responsible for the coal ash, has stated that they are complying with regulations and working to clean up these sites, the fact that these toxic materials are so close to communities has people nervous. So should you be concerned? Now, it's important to remember that while there is a lot of speculation and concern, nothing has been definitively proven. But it's also worth considering the fact that local advocacy groups and residents are pushing for more transparency and action. If you're thinking about moving to the Lake Norman area, I would recommend staying informed. and keeping an eye on ongoing investigations. As a realtor, I always want my clients to feel safe and confident in their decisions. If you have any questions about this or other issues, don't hesitate to reach out. The next topic we're going to discuss on the regrets about moving to Charlotte, North Carolina might hit you where it hurts: the wallet. We're talking about the low minimum wage in Charlotte and how that's impacting the cost of living here in the Queen City. If you're a blue-collar worker or someone earning minimum wage, living in Charlotte can be a real challenge. So let's start with the facts. In North Carolina, the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, which is the same as the federal minimum wage. This hasn't changed in over a decade. Now, Charlotte, as many of you know, is rapidly growing. Tons of people are moving here and the economy is booming. But that growth has a downside. The cost of living, especially for housing, has been increasing faster than wages, and that gap is starting to leave a lot of people behind. One of the biggest issues is housing. As Charlotte continues to grow, rent prices have skyrocketed. In fact, many blue-collar workers, service industry employees, and minimum wage earners are finding it nearly impossible to find affordable housing in the area. A lot of new developments are focused on luxury apartments and higher-end housing, leaving fewer affordable options for those earning lower wages. According to a recent study, you would have to work 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs in order to afford even a modest apartment here. So what are people doing? Many are moving further and further out of the city into surrounding towns and counties, where the cost of living is a little more affordable. But that comes with its own challenges: longer commutes, more transportation costs, and less access to public services. It's becoming a real balancing act for people to be able to live and work in the Charlotte area. Even jobs that once provided stability, like in manufacturing or construction, are feeling that squeeze of the higher cost of living and low wages. It's no surprise that many people I speak with are frustrated about this dynamic. Families are finding it harder to cover basics like groceries, healthcare, and transportation costs. And let's not forget that Charlotte does not have a robust public transportation system, so most people rely on cars, which adds even more financial strain. On top of that, as more people are forced out of the city, it is causing a workforce shortage. Businesses, especially those in the service industry, are finding it difficult to find employees because they can't afford to live close to work. Now, I'm not here to offer easy solutions because this is a complex issue, but it's something I think needs more attention as Charlotte continues to grow. There are some affordable housing initiatives being discussed, and there's always hope that wages might increase. But for now, this is a real concern for the people who live here. If you're considering a move to Charlotte and this is something that's on your mind, it's important to do your research. Know what the cost of living is and weigh your options carefully. All right, we've made it to the end of our list. We have one final regret to mention, and this is one that does not get a lot of attention. Often when people move to a new city, they miss their friends, family, and that sense of home. If you've recently moved to Charlotte or you're thinking about making the move, this is one of the biggest emotional struggles I hear from my clients. When you move to a new city like Charlotte, you're often excited about all of the possibilities. A new job, new experiences, maybe even a fresh start. But one thing that can be hard to prepare for is just how much you're going to miss the people you leave behind. It's a real emotional adjustment, especially if you're moving here without your closest family and friends. I've had clients tell me how they thought they would be fine, but then quickly started feeling homesick after the move. It's completely normal, but it can be pretty tough. One of the most common things I hear is, "I miss my people." Whether it's your lifelong best friends, family dinners, or even just those little hangouts you used to have back home, it's hard to replicate those relationships in a new place. For a lot of people, that sense of community and familiarity is one of the hardest things to leave behind. Even if you love everything about your new house or your new job, it's completely natural to miss those personal connections that made your previous home so special. Now, the good news is that Charlotte is an incredibly welcoming city, and there are plenty of opportunities to meet new people and develop new friendships. But it takes time. It's important to be patient with yourself and give yourself grace while you make that adjustment. There are tons of ways to get involved here, whether it's through local groups, community events, or even your neighborhood. Charlotte is full of people who have moved from all over, and many of them are in the same boat as you, looking for that new sense of community. One thing that can help ease the transition is to stay connected with the people you miss back home. We're lucky to live in an age where technology makes it easier to stay connected to people across the globe. Regular FaceTime calls, group chats, or even planning visits can help bridge that gap between your old home and your new one. You can also try joining social groups or taking up new hobbies here in Charlotte. The more you get involved, the easier it is to start building those friendships and making this place feel like home. It's all about balance. You don't have to give up everything about your old life to start a new one here. Charlotte is a growing city with so much to offer, and while it can be an adjustment, you will find your rhythm. It's about giving yourself time and space to miss home while also creating new memories and new experiences that help Charlotte feel like your next chapter. Moving to a new city like Charlotte can be a big life change, and it's okay to feel a mix of emotions. It's totally normal to miss home, but remember that you're also building something new here. If you ever need advice or just need to talk about the transition, I'm here to help. And in case you want to bring all of your family and friends along for the journey to Charlotte, let me remind you one last time what I do for a living. As your realtor friend here in Charlotte and the surrounding suburbs, I'd be honored to assist you and your loved ones in your relocation to the Queen City. Okay, so Charlotte isn't for everybody. The fact is, there are pros and cons to living in every city in America. If there were a perfect city, everyone would want to live there. And by the way, then it would become too crowded. So even with all of those complaints, gripes, and regrets, and still people move to the beach, the mountains, or even back where they came from, we still have more people moving to the Queen City than leaving. If this video didn't scare you and you want to learn more about moving to the Charlotte area, feel free to reach out. All of my contact information is down below, and there's even a link to my calendar so that you can schedule a Zoom call at a time that works best for you. Until next time.